The card trick I'm about to show you is a reputation maker. I've been hesitant to teach this one. I've been holding on to it for myself, but the time has come. I'm going to teach it now. This trick takes very little sleight of hand, but it looks amazing, and you'll even fool yourself when you do it. So here's how the trick would look. You start dealing cards onto the table in random spots, and then you're going to put other cards on top of those cards, and you can put some face up, and you'll have some face down. It's just a random mix of cards up and down. And you can stop whenever you want, so make as many piles as you want. So depending on the size of the table, you could add more piles. Once you've got enough piles on the table, you'll ask your spectator to just select which pile they want you to pick up first. And they can really pick any one. It's a free choice. So let's say they pick this one. You'll ask them, do you want to keep it this way or should you flip it over? So let's say they said flip it, so you'll flip it over. Then they pick this one and they say leave it this way. And they pick this one and they say leave it the same way. Then the next one, they say flip that one over. So you take it and you flip it over. Whatever they ask you to do, that's what you do. Next pile, let's say keep it the same way. The next one, they'll say flip it over, let's say. Let's say this one, they said put it on, keep it the same way. So you do. Then the next one, they say flip it over. So you flip it over. And then this one, they say keep it the same way. So you put it on top. Now you'll randomly grab a bunch of cards and you'll say you want to keep them the same or flip them. Let's say they say keep them the same. And let's just say, how about now? And they'll say flip them. So you flip these cards over. And then let's say now, they say flip them. So you flip those over. And then you say, how about the rest of them? We'll keep them the same way. Put them on top. And you can do that as many times as they want you to do it. And then you're going to deal them into two separate piles. You're going to ask them to select one of the piles that you will put on top of the other pile, and you'll flip it over when you do that. So whichever pile they pick, that's the one you will flip over. Let's say they picked this pile. So you'll take it, you'll flip it over on top of that pile. And then you'll ask them how many face-up cards do they think are in this pile now. It'd be pretty hard to follow that, but I'm going to guess there are exactly 5 face-up cards in this pile. And not only are there just 5 cards, they're not just a random 5 cards. They happen to be a royal flush. The secret to this trick is so much more simple than you could ever imagine. You'll take whatever cards you want to be the ones at the end of the trick and put them on top of the deck. So in this case, I have the straight flush. And I'm going to deal those cards face down onto the table first, right? And it's supposed to look random, like I'm just throwing cards all over the table. Now I know I've gotten to 5. The next batch, I'll throw a few up and a few down. When you get done, what you want these 5 cards to be the only face down cards on the bottom layer, and all the other random cards will be face up in the bottom layer, and the entire top layer is face down. And so we have 5 face down cards, which happen to be the spades. And now I'm just going to start flipping some cards up, putting cards on top of other cards, and then I'll flip more cards up. I'll put another one on top of that. I'll put cards on top of, and all I'm doing is making this 2 layer of cards. And again, it can be as many cards as you want until you have piles of 2. And all of the bottom layer face down cards are the cards that you want to end with. And that's it. The rest is going to work by itself. Pick any pile they want. And they can, like I said, keep it this way. They could flip some upside down. They could flip them all upside down if they wanted. It wouldn't matter. It's completely random. Flip this one up. Now, you can do that over and over again. So you could take 2 cards at a time and leave it the same way and flip them over. You could take 4 cards at a time if you want and ask them if they want to flip over. You just can't take an odd number of cards. It's got to be an even number. So let's say we'll do 4 again, and we do 2. They want to flip them over, and 2, they want to flip them over. These 2 stay up. These 2, they flip over. As long as you always take even numbers. When you deal the cards into 2 piles, you just have to remember this one part at the end. After they're fully dealt, you'll ask them to pick one of the piles, and you're going to flip that one on top of the other pile the opposite way. Now, while I'm dealing, I'm paying attention to where the spades are. Now, I notice they're in this pile. I see that the ace of spades is there. So I want this pile to be the one that's going to be face down. So now when I ask them to select one of the piles, if they pick this one, I'm going to flip this on top, and I'm done. The trick is done. If they pick this pile, I would flip it on top, just like I would do before, and I'd take the entire packet, and I would just turn it over as I'm talking, and I would say, how many do you think are upside down? And again, it's going to be the same thing, and you'll just deal them out and show that the only 5 cards that happen to be face up are the spades. So why does this work? Well, if I want these cards to be the ones that are face up at the end, I'm just going to put them face down. And then I'll put the rest of them in order face up so you can kind of follow what's happening here. So we have essentially 2 layers of cards. And it doesn't have to be exactly 10, right? It can be as many cards as you want, as many piles. So we have 2 layers. The bottom layer, we have some cards that are face up that don't matter. We have 5 cards that are face down that we want to be there in the end. And then the top layer is going to be all the same. They're all facing down. When I mix them up, It's not going to matter as long as I do everything in pairs. So do the 2 or 4 or 6 cards at a time, because the very last move we do, don't forget, is we cut them by dealing left and right, left and right, left and right. And by doing that, we're essentially just separating the top layer from the bottom layer. And then we flip one on top of the other, which reverses everything we did. If I did it with just 2 cards, right, with 1 pack, and I put it like this, and then I dealt 1 here and 1 here, and then I flip this one on top of that one, it just puts them the same way, right? And if I had taken them in my hand and flipped them over first, and then dealt them here and here, and flipped it over this way, they'd both be the same way. Now, if I took one of these packets where they're both upside down, and I flipped them over, or I left them flat, it doesn't matter. I deal them in 2 piles. When I flip them over, now there is one that's face up and one that's face down. So it's very easy to see with just 2 cards. Now picture it with 4 cards. All right, so I have these 2 with the 10 there, and then I have these 2 with 1 face up. I put them together. It doesn't matter which way, because I'm going to have 2 cards face down, and then 1 card face down and 1 card face up. Even if I flip this over, I'm still going to be in that same situation where 1 card's face up and it's not the one that matters. And then when I separate the cards by dealing them into 2 piles, again, I'm separating the top and bottom layers. And then when I flip this over, all I'm doing is reversing that situation, and I'm leaving the 10 face up. It's going to work the same way regardless of how many cards are on the table.